All right, I think we are live now. Hey, Nelly, thanks for joining us today. I know it's been a while. It's probably been a cold, dark winter up in Alaska. How's everything been with you?
It's been great. It has been cold and dark, but winters are a pretty great time to just kind of rest and recharge up here. How about you?
Well, and then it's been good. It's we actually have a lot of warm weather on the forecast down here in Florida, so we'll be should have some good tarpon fishing and all that in the next couple of weeks. So it's everything's good. Can't complain. Then we have Jessica, our policy and public affairs director, on as well. And Jessica, you're tuning in from West Palm, right?
Yes, I'm over here on the east coast of Florida where it is warm and sunny. I think it's in the around 80 right now. So yes, it's nice weather today.
Nice.
I think we have 80 degrees on us.
Yep.
So we're connecting today just to kind of give everybody an update. We did a project where we collaborated with TU Alaska, Save Bristol Bay, over, I guess it was late this past summer, everyone in between. And we wanted to talk about why we did this, development since then, and just the importance of everyone in between still staying, everyone in between these two estuaries staying engaged in the fights to protect them. There's been a lot of developments in the past 4 or 5 months, even in the past week or so on both of these issues. So we're here to talk about that. And I already see we have some Adam from Texas commenting. I'm sure we're going to have a lot of people outside of Florida and outside of Alaska that are really passionate about both places. And I know we have people here in South Florida that are fired up about Bristol Bay, and the people in Alaska I know are all maybe a little bit envious of our weather right now. So I'm sure Jessica and I can brag about that. But yeah, I think Nelly, why don't you talk about kind of what's happened with or why don't you talk about why it's so important for people outside of Alaska to be engaged and to kind of have their finger on the pulse and what's happening with Bristol Bay and Pebble Mine and all that.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Daniel. Thanks, Jessica. Bristol Bay, like your territory down there, captures the hearts of people all over the country. They're just something special about these places that we love to fish and are really bountiful and productive and give back to communities and the economy in so many ways. For those of you who haven't been to Bristol Bay, it's where half the world's sockeye salmon come from. It is a large area of land that still has these endlessly winding rivers, and the channels literally run red with salmon in the late summer. Those salmon in turn feed the bears, they feed monster rainbow trout, they feed importantly local communities and people, and they literally feed the world, because most of the salmon that you buy in restaurants around the country come from Bristol Bay. So it's a very special place, both from a sport angling perspective, but also from a food perspective and a culture perspective and an economic perspective.
Oh, well, thank you. It looks like Daniel dropped off for just a second, so I'll take over for a minute. How did captains and Trout Unlimited, the Save Bristol Bay campaign, how did you guys connect? How did that get started?
Sorry, my internet was out there for a second. So we've kind of known about each other's issues for a while, and I think really the fly fishing community has really embraced both Everglades and Bristol Bay. It's been, I would say, probably the top conservation issues that they focused on. And Ben Bullis from AFTA, as well as our partners at Orvis and several other brands, they've been telling us for a long time to get involved. I know Brian Kraft, based down a couple times in Washington, basically like, hey, and we also had John Landry, who we worked on the Everyone in Between with. He's a tarpon guide down here and has the Pebble Mine stickers all over his boat and all that. And we saw an opportunity this summer that we know over the next couple of years we're going to need a lot of support outside of Florida for Everglades. And we also saw things were heading in kind of a scary direction with Pebble Mine, and we needed to get our supporters involved with that. So we just reached out to Ben, and he got us in touch with TU and ultimately to Nelli.
Yeah, I mean, a big kudos to the captains for Clean Water team, and just just seeing so much commonality between the issues. There are a lot of folks like John that fish or guide in Bristol Bay and in the Everglades, and I think that's there's a lot of people where both of these issues are near and dear to their hearts, and I think Everywhere in Between was a really great job of telling that story of how these two fisheries in nearly opposite ends of the country are joined in a lot of ways. And I think you guys told the story really well in the video.
Yeah, it was a cool project to work on, and I know back when I used to be more involved with our social media stuff, the rest of our team kind of kicked me off of that. But I remember when I was in charge of our Facebook and Instagram, we were always getting tagged all summer, August, September. It was just tons of people from Alaska that had, captain's hats and stickers, and they're tagging us, hey, get involved with us up here. This place needs protection. And, I think for us, recognizing that, the Everglades needs that same kind of attention across the country. It's something that you guys have done such a great job with the Bristol Bay stuff. It's really easy to just point our supporters there and say, hey, it's get involved with Save Bristol Bay, get involved with TU. It doesn't really take much more than that from us, other than just pointing people to an organization that's already doing amazing work. And, I think that, I know I've said it before, but it's, if you spend your winters in any part of the country dreaming about the Everglades or dreaming about going up to Bristol Bay to fish in the summers, it really is your responsibility to do at least something to try to make sure that they're going to be there when, you get enough time or money or whatever it takes to, to get to that destination. And it's the actions that it takes. You don't have to write $1 million check, or you don't have to, fly to Washington. It's sometimes just as easy as clicking a couple buttons on your computer, and encouraging your friends to do the same. It can make a really big difference. And I know with what happened with the Pebble permit being denied, if people weren't paying attention, that thing would have slid through in a heartbeat. So it's just really, I know it's, everybody wishes, like when you tell them, hey, these are important issues, they wish there's like a magic button where it just fixes everything, but it just takes a lot of people hitting buttons on their computer screen, sharing stuff out, and just showing that awareness that, hey, we're watching, we're paying attention, and we're not okay with the direction things are going when they're not going the right way.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the biggest, lessons that, and several colleagues and friends and folks that have been working on the Bristol Bay issue for over a decade. We early on, when we were talking with people at sports shows or, just, out on the streets of Anchorage, everybody said that there wasn't a chance. There was too much money in the ground that thanks for telling people about it. But, really there was very little chance that we could stop the mine from going forward. And we ended up, the permit got denied for the Pebble mine last November. And it was absolutely because people spoke up, and they spoke up time and time and time again. And, sometimes you wonder if that email really matters, or if that phone call to a decision maker matters, and it absolutely does. And it's a really, really important part of democracy, and also a public process. And, especially for folks that make their businesses rely on decisions that affect the land and rivers where they work. It's kind of like an insurance policy, like being able to speak up and invest some time, and it doesn't have to be much, to speak up for those places you depend on. I think comes back with a lot of returns down the road, right? Like, and I think businesses have a really powerful voice, but also individuals have a very powerful voice. And we've seen it in action, and we've seen the proof that every single voice matters in these issues.
Yeah, for sure. We had had kind of a surprise issue that came up early last year, where there were some federal policymakers that were trying to get some really harmful language put into the Water Resources Development Act that would have really put a hamper on progress that's been made, and just how water is managed in the Everglades system. It would have really been like a 20-year setback. And we had to launch a campaign, and we had 6,000 or 7,000 of our supporters in a day or two that took action on it, and it ended up getting stopped. And I don't doubt for a second that it was like right when the whole coronavirus thing started, people's attention was elsewhere, and I don't think they would have tried to do that if they didn't think they could get away with it because of the kind of the scenario at the time. So that's one of many times that we've seen our supporters have taken action. It was not something we planned for. It was just very last minute, and we put some information out and had a bunch of people reaching out, and next thing we knew, it was removed from the legislation. So yeah, it definitely makes a difference, and you don't win every time. But when you do, it proves that, like, if the groups that were fighting that, if they weren't doing it, nothing would have been there to stop it. So vigilance is definitely key, for sure, on these issues.
Yeah, and I think it's a really important partnership between nonprofit organizations like Captains for Clean Water or Trout Unlimited, or say Bristol Bay is a project of ours. But like it's our job, right, to track those bills or projects that either could threaten the rivers and land, or could proactively help them. And I think and not all businesses or individuals have the time to do that. So I think a really easy way that people can help is really stay plugged in through social media or emails, or we do some of the heavy lifting to make it as easy as possible for people to speak up.
Yeah, and that's something that I know. I'm not a policy person. I don't have any policy experience, but I mean, just the language that's used in a lot of the legislation, and like a normal person looks at that, and like I'm like, Jessica, what the hell does this mean? It doesn't make any sense, and I don't think that's really a fair thing to the public. But that's why organizations exist, and why we have people like you, Nelli, and Jessica that are able to translate a bunch of legalese, lawyer talk and make sense of it to the public and kind of explain what impact that's going to have on people. So that's definitely a one of the things that we're always paying attention to, and our partners down here and all the Everglades issues, just paying attention to all these things that you don't get a push alert on your phone when a terrible piece of legislation. You get one every time somebody likes your Instagram picture, but when there's something terrible happens, it takes a lot of effort from all of our organizations to bring that to people's attention and let them see that, hey, you have an opportunity to speak up and make a difference here.
Absolutely.
So, Nelli, tell us a little bit about what has happened in the past couple months, leading up to and after the denial of the permit for Pebble Mine.
Yeah, happy to. It was a very fast-paced 2020 in the world of Bristol Bay and Pebble. For the past couple years, the Pebble mine had put forward a mine plan and was doing everything they could to get a big permit they needed, their Clean Water Act permit, in order to move forward with the mine. That involved public review, scientific review, fairly, actually it wasn't that lengthy, but several years of process. And then in November, the Army Corps of Engineers said that they did not meet the standards required and that they couldn't receive their permit. It was a huge deal. That means that they do not have permission to dig up or fill in a significant area of land and water. And functionally, there's no way they can move forward from here without that permit. So that was right before Thanksgiving. They have challenged that decision administratively. So the Pebble Partnership is currently asking the Army Corps of Engineers to take a look and consider reversing that decision. So it's still definitely something that we're tracking, and we'll defend that permit denial that was secured back in November. And I guess the other thing I'll note is we've been working a lot here to figure out what our next steps are when it comes to Pebble Mine and protecting Bristol Bay. Permit denial is really important, but it also, we know that in order to permanently and durably ensure the fisheries continue to thrive, that we need some proactive actions to make sure that we're not dealing with a Pebble mine again in 20 years or 50 years or 10 years. So we have a couple options for that we are pursuing.
Yeah, and I know we learned a fair amount about interest or potential interest in expanding the mining up there from the Pebble tapes that came out. So I think it's really going. The threat's always there. I mean, there's billions, probably even trillions of dollars worth of money in the ground up there, gold and copper and everything else. But yeah, it's the threat's always going to be there. So it's definitely something that if you're an Alaskan, if you're an American, if you're a sportsman, if you want to go up there and fish, or want your kids and grandkids to be able to go up and experience really the most wild fishery that we have in North America, if that's something that you want and you care about, then that long-term protection, it's who knows what the overall roadmap is to it at this point, but you can't ever let that slip. That should be a priority. I know we have a lot of really cool fisheries, a lot of really cool wild places in North America, in the United States, but there's nothing quite like Bristol Bay. It's a really an untouched wild place. And, looking at the Everglades and seeing, it used to be that wild. It used to be that incredible of a place, and still is incredible, but it's been heavily manipulated. And we don't have the luxury. Our fight is not, don't do it. It's, we're trying to fix all this bad policy, restore hydrologic functions that have been manipulated for the last 100 years, stop pollution. There's just so many different things that go into it. I think it's, at least we're heading in the right direction. At least people are starting to see that, hey, we have to fix this mess that we made. But Alaska is the perfect example of just don't mess it up.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you guys are doing amazing work to try to fix a system that is struggling at times and broken. And I think that's one of the things that we've thought a lot about, right? Like Trout Unlimited spends a lot of money trying to fix rivers in the lower 48. And, I think we have a chance to learn from the mistakes in the lower 48 and ensure we have fisheries that can remain intact, not just for recreation, although that's very important, but for economics here, right? Like we have a growing tourism industry out in Bristol Bay. We have, although, it's been a challenge the past couple of years with COVID, or the past year with COVID, but we also have a thriving commercial fishery and local communities that have said, we absolutely don't want this mine. Please, let's get this off the table so that we can focus on sustainable economic development and other things that help us live in this place, our home, for many, many generations to come. And I think it's really, it does make Bristol Bay unique. As you mentioned, it is one of those places that is wild and perfectly functioning. And, we just really need to let it be and let it do its thing. And it will continue to give back in ways that are really hard to quantify right now, but are incredibly valuable.
I think that is a very important point that Nelli just made. And it's interesting bring that up. It's timely because I was reading an article today that Simon Perkins, it was an interview with Simon Perkins of Orvis. I don't know if you've seen the article yet, Nelli and Daniel, but it was an interview, and they asked Simon, what's Orvis's next conservation battles? And I had pulled the quote up because I did not want to quote him incorrectly, but his quote was, we'll continue to learn and work with our partners at Trout Unlimited and others to ensure that this valuable resource is permanently protected for generations to come. Like Bristol Bay, Florida's Everglades is another massive ecosystem that, if kept healthy, supports the passions of so many, which in turn supports a robust and sustainable economy. So I think what you were referencing there, I think is something that decision makers, policy makers, and everyone, is there. Everyone's realizing now that these ecosystems, support the entire economy of regions and states, and keeping them, protected in as pristine condition as possible, so these people can, recreate and hunt and fish and enjoy these waterways. The economic piece of it is just, very important.
Absolutely. And I think Orvis has been such a great partner to both the campaigns, both Captains for Clean Water and to Trout Unlimited Save Bristol Bay campaign. And I think, beyond the local economies, in the communities, there is some very big national economic impact that can help support, but that keeping these places functional and operating as they are help support a vast network of businesses and outfitters and guides, and that I think that will only continue to grow if we continue to take care of those places.
For sure. And I know we have a link in the comments and on the screen as well to Save Bristol Bay, which is one of the projects of TU Alaska that Nelli works on. So Nelli, is there anything on the site that you think people should pay attention to right now?
Yeah, I encourage everybody to go over to the Take Action page. We do have several letters that are important to sign right now that are aimed toward those long-term protections. So trying to continue the public momentum to ensure Bristol Bay is around for the long haul. And then, for any guides who are listening that guide in Bristol Bay and maybe live in Florida, we do have a guide ambassador program that is such a great program. I think we had about 40 guides go through the program last year, and we give you all sorts of great resources and tools to help educate others about the current events and issues. So I would call attention to both of those.
Nice. Well, I know I saw Landry was on here earlier, so John, you better sign up for that and get Thermo and JP and the whole crew up there to at the Alibi to get educated. I know they did a great job, just having a ton of resources, and like their whole place is just completely covered in No Pebble Mine stickers. But it's definitely good. I think that I see Megan or somebody put a link there in the comments. But yeah, definitely check that out, and I'm sure they have other friends at other lodges and all that. It'd be, I think, great to continue to expand that and get a ton of guides to go through that, because I'm sure it's a top question that. All right, John said he already signed up. Well, sign Thermo up then. Make sure he's doing it. But yeah, it's great to have just a ton of people to learn. That way, the guides are the ambassador of the area, so they need to be fully educated and talk to the clients about it.
Yeah, it's been really powerful to have folks in boats with clients able to talk about what the latest is with Bristol Bay and really engage people who care and just had a great fishing experience there. So
great. Well, yeah, make sure you check that out. There's a million links in the comments and on the screen all over the place. Poke around the Save Bristol Bay website and take action and send it to any guides that you may know that go up to Bristol Bay in the summer.
What, Daniel, what about the Everglades? What's the latest? Just giving folks that maybe not are aware.
Sure. There's a lot going on. We are heading into legislative session in Tallahassee right now. That's Jessica, it starts March this year. You're on mute.
Sorry, March to April.
Yeah. So yeah, our legislative session jumps around. It's only 2 months, and they switch between January, February, and March and April. Every year. So we have the late session this year. We have a huge, and our main issue right now is funding Everglades restoration. We have projects in the pipeline that have been underfunded for the last 20, 25 years. There's other problems too. There's pollution. There's a lot of different things, but the infrastructure side of funding these projects that have been essentially sitting on paper in Washington and Tallahassee for the last 2 decades, and are essentially 2 decades behind in the timeline right now. That's a huge part of what we're focused on. Not everything, but a lot of what we're focused on. We had obviously a very big deficit from COVID, and the Florida legislature is having to deal with that right now. Usually environment is one of the first things to be cut. but we are seeing, I think, commitment from the legislature to continue funding Everglades at the levels that that they need to be. So it's still too early to say for sure, but that's, I think, at least encouraging that they are recognizing that there's an economic impact and a quality of life impact. So we're looking at that, as well as federal funding over the next couple of years. It really has to increase significantly over the next several years to keep these projects on track. Now that the Army Corps is able to execute some of these larger projects on an expedited timeline, it's just going to take a ton of federal funding, a ton of state funding. So that's, I would say that's our main focus right now. I don't know, Jessica, if you have anything else to add to that, or where people should be focused in the coming months.
No, just what Daniel said. We have, a governor here who, committed $2.5 billion in funding when he took office a couple of years ago. So we're trying to sustain that level of funding, which equates to about $625 million a year for the Everglades and water resources in Florida. We're trying to just keep that level of funding at the state level and also at the federal level. That's our priority. Bringing those projects online. There's an economic benefit to that, obviously. Shovel in the ground, provides also Everglades restoration is jobs as well. And we're just trying to, fight for that and make sure we can maintain those consistent levels so we can bring more projects online, like we broke ground on the EAA Reservoir project this year, which was a huge, it's huge for us. So that project's been a really long time in the making, and we were able to be there for the groundbreaking, of that. And it's really awesome to see it comes to fruition.
Yeah. And that was kind of the first project that we really got involved with when we started Captains. We were, there's all these different Everglades restoration projects, but that one it's kind of the biggest political football of the mess, but it's also the biggest ROI that's going to help. It's the way you can spend the least amount of money and have the biggest impact on water quality, not just in Southwest Florida, but for the Everglades and the East Coast as well. And there was some legislation that was filed in 2017 up in Tallahassee that we fought for, and ended up passing kind of a compromised version of it, but at least it moved forward. And the former regime over at the Water Management District had actually, when the incoming administration was coming in, they had signed a lease to continue leasing a bunch of state-owned land to some sugar farms, and we kind of pitched a fit about that one, and our members spoke up, and it was undone. It was kind of dissolved over a couple months after that. But that was a huge setback, and we saw what public pressure did there. And now going out there, I mean, they had late last summer, they did the initial groundbreaking, which we were at, and they had all this dynamite in the ground. They're blowing these huge holes in the ground essentially to convey water into this new filter marsh to clean phosphorus and a little bit of nitrogen out of the water. So we were there when that first happened late last summer, and then just recently have been out there again. And it's to see the amount of progress and something that would have stayed as farm fields for several more years. It's really cool to see that. I mean, it's in the grand scheme of Everglades restoration, it's a big step forward. But it's probably one of the toughest steps forward politically. It's just been a challenge forever. and to see that there's actually like massive amount of progress, and they're blasting all these canals out there, and just it looks. I think I see there's a comment here, and you can click and see some of the progress that's happened out there. But we're not popping champagne bottles until we can float all the way from Lake Okeechobee down to the Everglades through all these things. But it is exciting at least to see that dirt's moving and these projects. The Everglades essentially had three major components. It was water storage. It was like a big sponge that held water. It was a filter. It cleaned nutrients out of the water. The plants consume the nutrients, and it was a conveyance. It was a free flowing river. Very slow, but it moved. And it doesn't function like that anymore. The Everglades is half the size it used to be. It's full of pollutants, and it's dammed. It's pretty much segmented into these big ponds, and it'll never look the same way it did 100 years ago. But restoration is about taking that smaller footprint and putting more efficient filter marshes to take the nutrients out, removing the barriers so it can flow, and then adding reservoirs so it can hold the massive amounts of water that it takes to feed the system in the dry season. Right now is when the southern end of the Everglades, really the demand for water is increasing, and that's when the Everglades never gets water. It's flooded when we don't need it, and it's dry when we do need it. So that's kind of what restoration's about, and just seeing some progress there is really encouraging.
Oh, that's an amazing amount to get done in a short period of time, right? You guys have a 5-year anniversary today. It's so exciting.
Oh yes.
That's a lot to get done in 5 years. I mean, I think that's one of the lessons that we have to keep in mind in these, like, these are really long efforts, and you kind of have to celebrate those milestones, because while they don't seem giant at times, sometimes when you look back, you're like, wow, like that first step was what set off all the rest, or this particular moment or bill we passed just really changed things and changed them in the right direction. So I think that's so exciting. I'm excited to check out the website and see that.
And I see Bob Bevel, one of our board members, is on here. Bob's been with us for almost a full 5 years. He joined the board very early on with captains. I know at times for me and others on our team, it's like frustrating, because like you want to change the world in 5 years, but like when you see all the different moving pieces, it's kind of bittersweet. I mean, we all wish that we could have done twice as much in the last 5 years. And we hope the next 5 years we can do 10 times as much as we did in the first. But the only way that's going to happen, with captains, with Save Bristol Bay, is more people getting involved. That's that voice. We can focus people's voices and we can amplify messages, but we don't. Our groups are not buying off politicians like special interests are. We're relying on people using their voice, and we can funnel people's voices. We can tell them when something bad's about to happen. But at the end of the day, our power is from our members, or from our supporters. It's not about the a couple people that are involved, or the work that really any of us do. It's about everybody else that's tuning into these videos, that's taking action, that's taking the time to talk to their friends, their charter clients, their customers, their neighbors, people that don't want to hear it, and telling them that, hey, you have to pay attention, you have to become educated on these issues, you have to become involved in these issues, and you have to talk to your neighbors that don't want to hear about it, talk to your friends that think this is too big of a problem to be fixed. Those are the people that we need the most. You can, it's not about what you do. It's about how many other people you can get involved. So I think if everybody takes that approach and gets more of their friends, not just involved with TU and captains, but also, every other conservation issue that matters to you, that's the way that we're going to be able to get more done. I know we've worked a lot with the TU crowd, and I mean, I see the work that goes on in our office, and we're all working really hard. It's just a matter of getting more people to join the fight and use their voice.
Go ahead, Jessica.
No, absolutely. That's what it is, and the grassroots part of that, and coalescing everyone and giving everyone a voice. And sometimes it's different voices. The guides have one voice, and our constituent, our general constituency has another voice, and the outdoor industry, is important to both of our organizations in this fight. So I can talk a little bit about the grassroots too, if you want me, if you want me to, I can go because and how grassroots actually help the conservation effort, of both of our organizations. Both of our organizations are very, effective communicators of our message, and education and awareness. Our team meetings, we're constantly, we're constantly checking out the content that you guys put out at Trout Unlimited. It's very thoughtful, deliberate, informative, simple, easy to understand, and we try to do the exact same thing. But to get to the technical side of it, for the people that are tuning in, and so they have an understanding of what grassroots, how it actually helps. It's the actual action, by, an individual, whether it's signing that petition, sending an email, showing up at a meeting, it is the result of the same motivation of something that's adverse or bad, that's impacting their own personal livelihood or their daily quality of life. It may be called, grassroots, but, it's really nothing more than an individual believing that if they do it, what's being asked of them, their circumstance, it'll actually change for the better. And, everyone, we all want clean air, clean water, a pristine environment to fish, hunt, and recreate. It's like politicians saying that they're for better education and against crime. But until, until that individual or person, until they can't breathe or the air, or drink the water, or enjoy that body of water, rising to action, it's always someone else's issue. So, at Captains, we've focused our, a constituency of supporters and individuals who believe that Captains, organization has their best, at heart. But that only goes so far. If we can point out the problem, but without, a call to action, our supporters, they, drift away and, gravitate, towards an organization offering, activism as a solution to making their life better. But, fortunately, that's not how, we were founded or how we've grown. What's made us successful at Captains is, our ability to stay in tune with the challenges facing, our base and our base of, of support. And I think that's exactly the same, with TU and, in the Save Bristol Bay campaign. You know, when we all, you know, issue a call to action, you know, it's a message that resonates with our core constituency, because it hits home, and, you know, the precise circumstance hurting their daily life at that moment. I think, you know, we all go through, you know, we have our own internal rules of how we, and guidelines of how we generate a call to action. But, you know, to date, we've been involved, you know, and participated in policy issues on an organizational level, but only a couple of times. You know, we try to limit the call to actions to something that's very, you know, important, you know, stopping the discharges from Lake Okeechobee, which carried the harm, you know, the algae out, you know, to both coasts, or stopping the pebble mine, you know, which would harm the Bristol Bay area. You know, those are very important calls to action. But thanks to the guides and the enthusiasts who make up both of our, you know, a lot of our constituencies, and the outdoor groups, businesses, you know, it's resulted, you know, we've seen results with these call to actions and, you know, these grassroots movements.
Yeah, and I know that's something that we always focus at Captains, is just our fight, I said earlier, our fight isn't don't do this, it's you know, fix a problem. So we have so many different moving pieces, that we constantly have something that needs attention, and to be able to focus our supporters. And you know, we when we issue a call to action, it is a dire emergency. There's so many threats that we see on a yearly basis that we have to really pick, okay, here's the top couple. We need tens of thousands of people, you know, in the next week to weigh in on this. So it's definitely, you know, once the problem is there, like it is in the Everglades, and there's money and power fighting it, and corruption on the other side of it, you really have to dial in on, you know, whatever the most important thing is at the time, and keep people engaged on that. That's really the key to getting these problems fixed for us. So it's, you know, I'm sure, like, say Bristol Bay, I'm sure you all had a lot of people, you know, right when the decision was about to be made on the permit, I'm sure you had you know, that was probably like peak engagement. And I think the biggest challenge is for people to understand that threat's still there. And now, even though it's, you know, the permit's been denied, you need to be more vigilant now than you were before, because they're, as Nelli said, they're appealing that. They're, you know, there's a lot of money in the ground, and a lot of people that are, you know, trying to find a way to get that for themselves and take it away from you and I and everybody else that cares about that place. So it's the grassroots, you know, the biggest thing. It's not just when you press that button, it's all the education that you can do to yourself and to your friends ahead of time, so that you know what's going on, and knowing that your voice is going to make a difference when you do click the button.
Yeah, there's a lot that resonates there. You know, I am an absolute believer that, you know, we wouldn't, none of the work of the past 10 years would have been possible without people speaking up. And, you know, that's individuals from Iggyagig to Florida, right? That, you know, have to show up at hearings and post comments and submit comments and call their decision makers and elected officials. It absolutely, like, Pebble would have, they'd be digging a hole in the middle of Bristol Bay right now if it wouldn't have been for people speaking up. So I think it's absolutely important. I think it's really important too to connect with people on why these issues matter to their daily lives, because there's a lot thrown at us every single day on that will demand our time and energy. But I do think we're at a bit of a crossroads, right? With both Everglade and Bristol Bay. Like, we have a chance to write a wild salmon story or a fishery story in Florida and write the ending of it in a positive light. And I think we can do it. It's going to come with a lot of hard work, and hard work that's already been done, and more to come. But I think it's really essential to connect where folks are and recognize how that is going to impact their lives. And, I think both issues can, I don't know how it's been in Florida, but in Alaska, our trails have never been busier. So many people on the river because it was, people felt safe out there. And I think there's just been, regardless of your thoughts on COVID, I think there's just been a greater appreciation for being outside and what that does to our everyday Zooming lives, right? And that's where you get recharged. And I think there has been a little bit of awakening to that over the past year. And both the Everglades and Bristol Bay are important parts of, dreaming about where you're going to go on your next and your vacation.
Yeah.
Or how you're going to get your next meal too. So I think that's really, really good points, for sure, on the grassroots front. And these aren't issues that are far off in DC or somewhere else. They are issues near and dear to the hearts of a lot of people.
For sure. Yeah. And you mentioned that, an increase in people using outdoor places up in Alaska. It has been insane in Florida. I tried to book a campsite down in Everglades National Park this coming up weekend, like a month ago, and they were all booked. All the eco tents were booked, the houseboats were booked, the campsites were all booked. And this is a busy time of year in Florida, but it's the past year. I mean, pressure has tripled on the water here, and it's frustrating for the guides and recreational anglers here. I mean, we had a lot of pressure before COVID. Now there's even more, and that just further emphasizes, you have estuaries that are not healthy. It's just going to concentrate all those people in areas that are healthy. So, the pressure, I think it is, when you're out there, it can be frustrating, but at the same time, it's a good thing because those people all have a connection to it. If you're not connected to the resource, you're not going to fight as hard for it. So the fact that those people are out there is encouraging to me because those are all potential advocates for our waterways. And, I think, I've seen a lot more kids on the water recently, a lot of younger, kids my age and younger that were, getting involved in fishing, and, their friends were involved in fishing. And, that's encouraging. When I was a kid, you'd go to the boat ramps. It was a lot of people that were, I was like one of the youngest kids around. There weren't a whole lot of kids that were fishing, and it is encouraging to see that now. But yeah, it's, that should be a big takeaway from everybody from COVID is, I know some people are saying things are going to be back to normal this summer. I don't know that they will. It's for people that have taken time out of their schedule and spent more time outdoors. I think they're going to continue to make that time, and, Zoom meetings and all that are kind of prioritizing. I think if people that did, purchase a boat or, boat sales, you can't even get a boat in Florida right now. Most of the manufacturers, they're looking at 2-year waits for boats right now. If you want to order a Hell's Bay or really any boat right now on the market, you're going to have to wait at least a year for it. Most of them 2 years. So it's, I think I think it really changed our society a lot. And I think that a lot of people are going to be spending more time outdoors, and I'm hopeful that will mean that there will be more people that see the value in this. And it's not something that, the water isn't just something you drive over on a bridge on your way to work. It's something that, provided an escape from the insanity that was going on, and people could, get out and get away from others and feel safe and really enjoy the time and just give you a little bit of peace of mind that not everything is chaos. There's still some really awesome stuff out there. There's fish to be caught and birds to be seen and whatever it is that brings you out there. Regardless of whatever chaos is going on in society at the time. Seems like 2020 was just one thing after another. But if you get out there and get to a wild place, it's all that seems to just kind of fade away. And that's the only thing that really matters.
Absolutely. Well, and it sounds like Captains for Clean Water has some really important ways people can plug in right now if they care about the Everglades. And, we also are going to be pushing really hard for both action through the Clean Water Act for this current administration to take that, to put a layer of protection in place for Bristol Bay, and also hope to see some legislation from Congress that looks toward making sure that Pebble doesn't come back in 5 years or 15 years. So many ways people can plug in, and definitely a message I think we're all yelling is it's really like every voice matters, and right now is a really important time to speak up for both places. For sure. Yeah. And we'll be there to support anything that is going to be a benefit to Bristol Bay. And, our top priority is going to be the funding. I think the federal funding this year is going to be a something we're going to be shouting from the rooftops. We're looking at I think a couple different funding mechanisms that could bring money for the Everglades right now. And when one of them is, whatever one looks like it's going to be the best avenue, we're going to need supporters, not just here in Florida. I mean, our Florida delegation is going to support this. We need the people in Texas and Oklahoma and New York and Alaska and anywhere in the U.S. Those supporters are going to be even more important in this fight. So that's if you're watching this right now and you don't live in Florida, please go to captainsforcleanwater.org, learn about these issues, learn about the impacts they're having, and talk to your friends about, if you are here in Florida and you have a friend that's in another state that cares about this, give them a call, post on their Facebook page, whatever you can. We're going to need a lot of attention on Everglades from a lot of people outside of Florida. So anything you can do to help with that would be huge. And we're I think all optimistic at this point, but we recognize that we have to be vigilant. We can't look at this and say, "Oh, Pebble Mine is stopped and the Everglades, they're making progress." No, as soon as this momentum stops, Bristol Bay's mined and the Everglades is continued to be destroyed. So we have to hit the gas pedal twice as hard in 2021 and 3 times harder next year, because these problems are not going to fix themselves. And as soon as policymakers think that you're not paying attention, they're going to do what's politically expedient and convenient for them at the time. And unfortunately, 99% of the time, that's bad for you and I and everybody else that live here in America. So we got to pay a ton of attention to this for sure. Yeah, I'm optimistic. I mean, I think there is a lot of interest from so many angles on, coalescing around these issues that are bringing people together that don't typically agree. And, we just certainly saw that on the Bristol Bay front the past year, how, folks from all ends of the political spectrum started to realize how bad this mine would be and look forward. And I think I'm optimistic that we're going to continue to see, particularly around fisheries and conservation and clean water, that let's find the path through to make sure these special places are around for many future generations. So,
for sure. Yeah. I saw a comment here from Bob Bevel. Any thoughts on the current administration and how it may play out? I know we've had some good meetings with the Biden administration, at least during the transition phase. I think it's still pretty early there, but we're hoping that they're going to prioritize the funding on our side for Everglades. But it's still pretty early there, so we'll see. But we're I think hopeful that that they're going to put the money towards it, or at least ask Congress to put the money towards it.
That's great. Yeah, similar. We're optimistic and hopeful that the Biden administration will follow through on a statement they made during the campaign to stop Pebble and protect Bristol Bay. So, yeah, I agree.
And that statement that Biden made during the campaign, I mean, it was, again, it was because so much noise was being made from everywhere. Once a politician goes out on a limb like that and says, I would kill this if I was in office, or what, I can't remember exactly how he worded it, but if everybody was on their couch watching, TV and not paying attention and not posting about this on Facebook and not showing up to meetings and all that, I don't know if he would have said that. So it's really hard for the average person, I think, to quantify how their involvement helps. But when there's hundreds of thousands of voices speaking out on an issue, it becomes relevant, and it puts our policymakers in positions to where they have to speak out on it. So, it doesn't matter, if you love Biden or hate him or anywhere in between, or Trump or anybody else. What matters is that they are taking positions on these issues because people are speaking up. So it's something that I think that's true of every advocacy effort, every issue out there. We have to come together and see that our voice is making a difference, and the people that are in office, when they're pushed to, when they see an opportunity to take a stand on an issue, that's a huge win, regardless of any political ideologies or anything else that's out there. So, that's something just to always remember. And anytime we can get our policymakers on the record in our favor is a huge, huge win for these issues. And, I give huge props to the Save Bristol Bay crowd. I don't know how, no way of knowing how that would have played out, but the fact that y'all were doing an amazing job raising awareness there, I know that definitely played into that, and now you have a commitment there. So that's something really, really great that you'll have for quite some time to continue to keep the pressure on the issue.
Yeah, team effort.
Yep, absolutely.
Cool. So I think we're about wrapping up here. Did you have anything else, Nelli or Jessica, you wanted to add to the conversation?
No. Did we have any other? I think we answered all of the questions related to the topic in the chat, and I think that's about it.
Yeah,
great.
I have to say thank you guys for helping to spread the word on Bristol Bay, and you've been really awesome partners. And we've gotten so much good feedback on the Everywhere in Between video. It was beautiful story, well told, good fishing shots, everything you would need in a video. So thanks for doing that.
Yeah, and it's if you haven't seen it, check out Everyone in Between. I'm sure there's links to it on the Save Bristol Bay site and on our site, on the captain's site. You can go on there and watch that. it's worth bringing it up on your TV screen. Don't watch it on your phone. It's a half hour long. Instead of watching whatever garbage is on Netflix, watch something that matters. You can stream it on your TV. I'm sure there's. I figured out a way to put it on my TV, and I'm technologically illiterate, so I'm sure y'all can too. Lots of really cool stuff in there, and great story. So yeah, watch that, share it with your friends, and hopefully that will inspire a lot more people that are not plagued by these issues every day or threatened by the issue of the mine. I know it's top of mind for all the guides up there in Bristol Bay and the lodge owners and the outdoor brands, but it's an issue that really does impact anybody who's ever dreamed of going to Alaska or Florida to fish. So watch it, share it, share this video with your friends so they can understand that everybody has a part to play in conservation, and education is really key here. Tons of stuff you can learn on the captain site, tons of stuff on the Save Bristol Bay site. So check that out, watch the film, share it around, and do your part in conservation.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for all you do.
All righty.
All right.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining. Take care.
Yeah.
We'll see ya.
Good night.
Happy anniversary again.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.